spent the night away from you. I can't remember all the places I went. I don't recall how much money I spent.
As you guys know, I like to be really open and honest and share my life with you guys, and I felt like this was a dramatic life change that I needed to make a video about.
And the whole professional hockey player thing didn't really seem like something that was going to happen. So as I got older, I was starting to realize, okay, probably not going to make any real money playing professional sports, so
I just wanted to sit down and make a whole video on my experience with education and why I dropped out of school and didn't go to university and why I don't plan to go to university.
And that's when I realized a 9-to-5 kind of job just really isn't for me. I hate doing things on other people's terms. I hate just having to get up in the morning and do things at a certain time in a certain way. So I was thinking, okay, if I'm gonna go to university for something...
My friends say I was really doing my thing, but honey, I just can't believe it. I hate that whole thing. No, I can't believe I've been sinking so low, fooling with a crowd that's done these things before. See, I met this girl and I thought I was lucky, 'cause she was so fine and fat, just like a swamp turkey.
I've been thinking about this and meditating and praying about it for a while. And like I said, whenever I pushed it off, I would be okay and everything would be fine as long as I wasn't thinking about like, what am I going to do with my life? Am I really happy? But every time, like at the end of my yoga practice or when I'm just really thinking about it and trying to listen to myself, all these emotions would come up and I would feel like I just wasn't really following the right path.
But I woke up this morning with a bad taste in my mouth, way across town in somebody else's house. I asked them what all I'd been drinking and eating, and when they told me, I felt just like weeping. 'Cause honey, I just can't believe it. I ate that whole thing.
Because when I think about it, I am so blessed to have the opportunity to share something that I'm passionate about with hundreds of thousands of people.
You ate it all right. I know you. You ate the whole thing.
The warning I'm about to share with you applies to both YouTube and Western academia. It applies to both, although it applies to them in different ways. No matter what career path you're looking on, it's dangerous and misleading to only consider success stories. Don't look at the greatest luminaries, don't look at the most successful people in the field and think, oh, if I go into that field, I can be like them. Give a moment's thought to the range of mediocre outcomes that are possible. Really think through the worst case scenario, not just the best case scenario. And needless to say, it's not just the case that here on YouTube, for every one person who's as successful as Tess Begg or Caitlin Shoemaker, there's a surrounding halo. Should we say there's a surrounding crater of thousands on thousands of people who tried very hard and never got the outcome and never got the success. Even more invisibly, if you go to university and you take a look at the most successful professors, academics, researchers, the most successful graduates from that program at the university, you may be able to find a few examples of successful luminaries. But then there are thousands. There's a huge crater. There's a huge surrounding halo of failure that's much, much harder to see. It's much harder to find a trace of. It's a strange fact that about 1 year ago, my mother was really positive about the idea that I would drop out of university, my second university degree. I already have a bachelor's degree, whatever, that I would drop out of university and just do YouTube full time. She has a lifetime of experience with university. And when she looks at my YouTube channel, when she looks at the fact that I can upload a video talking about Aristotle, like politics and history and ancient Greece, I can upload a video about Aristotle and 500 people watch that video within just a few days. She's sensitive to the fact that that is not a small number compared to friends and colleagues and frenemies of hers who may have worked very, very hard their whole lives to get academic credentials and present papers at conferences and publish a book. And the book is never read by 500 people. In many cases, the book will not even sell 200 copies. I used to work in academic nonfiction in a publishing house as an editor. I've seen that story from many different sides and angles, from the side of the author, from the side of the publisher, from the side of the industry, from the side of the audience to some extent too. So, it wasn't completely ridiculous that my mother would have this attitude that what I should do is develop myself as an author and creative artist, building on what I'd already started here on YouTube. It's not completely ridiculous, but it's wrong. Something I said to my mother, something I said to one of my professors at University of Victoria too, because I had a similar conversation with one of my professors who was encouraging me to drop out of the program, even though I have grades that are A++. Use the example of Dr. Jordan Peterson. Why is Dr. Peterson successful on YouTube? Because before he was successful on YouTube, he appeared in a long series of appearances on mainstream television. First, he appeared on TV Ontario, and then he appeared on CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Okay? So his YouTube success was a result of conventional television success. Why did he appear on conventional television? Because he has a PhD. Why did a book publisher offer to gather together his casual Q&A commentary from websites, he did some Q&As, and publish it as a book? Why did he get a book publishing deal? Because he had a PhD, because he was a professor. So even with these bizarre examples of people being successful as public intellectuals here on YouTube, whether you want to look at, Dr. Jordan Peterson or any of the other, peculiar characters who've come out and done that, the role of formal education and getting a formal credential, it's not that it helps them, it's just that it's a requirement, all right? There's a difference between studying in university and actually being useful for you in some way, and the diploma, the degree, the credential simply being a requirement for doing what you want to do. Now, my mother has seen, failures in academia and around academia of many kinds. And I've seen it too. I've seen people with PhDs whose lives have really been utterly destroyed by those PhDs. I've seen people with PhDs who, after they finished their degree, were left lurking in the hallways of Cambridge University, struggling to pay rent somewhere within a bus ride distance of the university. And, they'd finished their studies, but they're still hanging around. They're applying for internships. They're applying for fellowships. They're applying for research opportunities that pay next to nothing. They don't know what to do with their lives. Of course, back when I was at the publisher, I had all these people with PhDs trying to publish books with us, hoping for some way to take a step forward in their lives. And I met those people with PhDs who were living in Beijing, China, as humble English teachers, who were living in Bangkok, Thailand, who were living in Vientiane, Laos. People with PhDs who were doing jobs that you could have done right after completing high school. I remember one guy who got a job as selling bottles of wine, standing there doing retail. I remember another guy who got a job as a line cook with his PhD in anthropology, right? I've seen people, across kind of this tremendous range of shades of gray of, living in a state of self-hating depression and devastation that they got their PhD and then were not able to do with it anything they wanted to do. Many times there's also a regret and a resentment that they got this education, but they never learned what it is they wanted to learn. In the same way that for every one YouTube channel as successful as Tess Begg, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of young women who, wear the same revealing attire and jump up and down and bounce around and put their recipes on the internet, and who are never going to make, $500 out of doing this, okay? But of course, the mistake Tess Begg made was to drop out of high school to do this full time. Whether we're talking about university education or talking about YouTube or talking about the strange way in which the two sometimes overlap, someone like Jordan Peterson, who used his PhD to manage to get himself social media fame. Bizarre but true. And who knows? There was talk just a couple of years ago. People were talking about him running for Prime Minister of Canada. He may go on to have a political career now if he ever gets out of drug addiction rehab and gets over his health problems. But, stranger things have happened in the history of Canada. I hear right now in America, you elected a reality TV star. Reality TV game show host, I suppose, became president of the United States of America, so a YouTuber could definitely become Prime Minister of Canada. There's no doubt about that. However, the ultimate question you have to ask yourself is about the one outcome that matters most, the one outcome you can control, okay? You don't get to decide whether your career is going to be successful or unsuccessful. What you get to decide is what kind of person you want to be, all right? Dropping out of high school changes who you are. Completing a bachelor's degree in political science leads to no employment of any kind whatsoever, right? You don't get to choose that. Every day when I went to University of Victoria and asked for help from a guidance counselor, from the careers office, or from the professor who was the head of the department, the only advice they ever gave me was join the army, join the CIA, do military intelligence. That was the only job they ever recommended for me on the basis of my having a university degree in politics and another one in Asian studies, Asian languages, all right? Ultimately, you have to look at these decisions, whether about education or entertainment, in terms of being the person you want to be, becoming the person you want to become. And to that end, for that purpose, you can't rely on anyone else. You have to regard your enrollment at the university as absolutely nothing but a library card, space on your desk, and space on the calendar to do the research, to do the work under your own motivation, under your own guidance, that's going to let you become the person you aspire to be. You can plan your life around possible outcomes, but there's one outcome that's inevitable. You've got to be somebody. Now choose. Who is it? Who is it you really want to be?
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.